Welcome to Monday Morning Express. Roland, second episode from our season finale
One more
already.
after this, that's
After
it.
this, but we have some great things in store for you today. What you see in front of me is a very special big boy. We're going to go out back to Ukiah with the gang there and talk with Bill Peters. He has a great story behind this, and you'll have a whole new appreciation for it. And one fortunate viewer will have a chance to purchase this because we are going to have it on the site.
That is a big boy.
So that is something to look forward to. What is the deal with all the yellow boxes?
Oh, come on, Dan. They're yellow boxes. And look I laid them out in the shape of a triangle. Caution, UTI is in the house. We got our PAs that have just arrived.
All right. We're looking forward to hearing more about those, that's for sure. And finally, we're going to go back out with Reid Dennis. Reid tells us a little story about how he got started in the venture capital business, some neat flying stories, and of course, it's going to be about brass trains. Reid tells us a little bit of why they're so important to him and what he thinks about a lot of the early hand builds, which also we're starting to offer on our site. But regardless whether you buy them or not, you're going to love the history. So we have all this to look forward to today on Monday Morning Express. So Reid, if we could ask a little bit about your background, you were an early venture capitalist in this area, correct?
That's true. I was a graduate at Stanford first in electrical engineering and then went through the business school. And shortly after that, I got a job with Fireman's Fund Insurance in San Francisco in their investment department. But about a month before I went to work for Fireman's Fund, I ran across a friend who was involved with a company called Ampex that made tape recorders. And I had seen an Ampex tape recorder in an engineering seminar at Stanford. And at that time, the first use of the Ampex tape recorders was to record Bing Crosby's Sunday afternoon broadcast so that he could play golf. And his sponsors would not allow him to use a phonographic kind of recording to broadcast his program, but tape recording was good enough that they agreed that okay, he can go play golf on Sunday afternoon. So he bought the first 10 Ampex tape recorders. But why the hell he didn't invest in the company, I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense to me. But late in '52, I heard that Ampex was doing a small financing, a private financing, and I was able to gather together a small amount of money that my grandparents had given me to get me through college, and I was now through college, so I pushed all of that, 100% of what I had, out on the table and put it all into Ampex, and that turned out to be a spectacular investment. And that changed my life. Started a venture firm in '74, and that firm is now raising money for its 16th fund. So it's been very, very successful. I'm no longer active or a partner and haven't been for 7 or 8 years. So it's worked well, and they're investing in things that I don't understand today. But that's the way the world is.
Yeah, and I know you did it with integrity and honesty and.
Well, it was fun. If you do it right, everybody wins. So it's. I love being in a business where if you were a winner, didn't have to be a loser.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, other than trains and your venture work, you also love flying airplanes.
I went down to the local airport here, and I took my first flying lesson one Friday evening, and I soloed the following Thursday morning. I just took to it like
like a bird of the sky, not a fish to the water.
No. But I ended up with about 9,000 hours as a private pilot, which is a lot for a private pilot, and ended up flying a little twin-engine Cessna to Europe a couple of times. Flew the air corridor into West Berlin once, and flew down through a trip you couldn't make today. We had a joint venture going with the Kuwait Investment Company, so I flew my little twin-engine airplane down through Beirut and Damascus, across the Saudi Arabian desert, and to Kuwait. And as someone said, as somebody in Beirut said, "Oh, if you're going to go to Kuwait, be sure to take an axe." I said, "An axe? Why an axe?" And he said, "Well, there's a radio beacon about halfway across the desert there. It hasn't worked for 6 months. And the best navigation device is the Trans-Arabian Pipeline. And so you follow the pipeline, and if you get into any kind of trouble, you can land on the road right next to the pipeline. And you take the axe over and cut a hole in the pipeline. And as soon as the puddle of oil gets big enough, they'll come out and find you."
That was fairly clever.
Yeah, he lent us an axe, and we carried the axe to Kuwait and then dropped it off on the way back.
That's a great story. Thanks.
So it's so I've had a lot of fun with that, and then in '97, I guess it was, I flew around the world in a Grumman seaplane, amphibian that I owned, and chased the gal who was recreating the Amelia Earhart trip, and we made the video that's been on PBS a number of times. They usually show it opposite the Super Bowl and opposite the Academy Awards, and sometime when they say, "Well, no one's looking tonight, we can play that again," you know.
Yeah, I think it was one of their more popular documentaries, wasn't it?
Yeah, it worked very well.
Yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah.
So you've been involved in a lot of neat things.
I've had fun. I've been very, knock on wood somewhere, I guess right here. I've had a lot of fun with it, and it's worked very well for me.
Well, we appreciate that you've been willing to sell some of your hand-built collection through our company. Thank you for that.
No, you're more than welcome.
And what would you, some of our viewers, if they're interested, what would you say to them why it's really something special to own one of these early hand-built models?
Well, you're not going to have this period again. It's not going to come back. The Japanese costs and everything are so high now in Japan that you won't see hand-built models out of Japan again. Korea, yes, there's some hand-built models that have come out of Korea, but the Japanese were better at it than the Koreans, and I just think that these models now represent a period in model railroading that was great while it was going on, but it's now beyond us, and it's not going to come back.
Yeah, and even from your own experience, other than those few large collections you were able to acquire, they're not easy to find, are they?
No, they're not. They're not. And the first one I bought was actually a fellow who did the drawings for Bill Ryan, and he lived back in Baltimore. And he died, and somebody who I had been doing business with was given his collection to sell. He called me, and I was, I guess, going to be in the East anyway, and I had my own airplane, and so we went out to somewhere in Maryland, out on the coast where he had a house, and he had loads and loads and loads of boxes, and we sat up until all hours of the night and early morning going through these boxes, and finally I said, well, I'll just buy the whole thing.
That sounds like great fun.
So we went out and loaded this little airplane with all these boxes, and I mean, it was jammed, and brought them home. And now those, in many respects, and I can't remember his name right now.
Is that John Long?
Yes,
collection?
that was the John Long collection. And John made the drawings for Bill Ryan, and he often they'd do a drawing and they'd send it to Japan, and they'd have a pilot model built and have it sent back to John Long to compare to the drawings, and then they might not even go into production on it. So you'd end up with this pilot model. It's one of a kind.
Right.
and that's all there was. And so I ended up with all those pilot models, and it was a lot of fun to have such a unique collection.
Yeah, now John sometimes would even modify engines a little bit,
Yes,
right?
he
Further,
would.
like add detail and so
Yes,
forth.
he
to
would.
them.
Hmm. Yes, yeah, he would. And I never met him. He was gone before I heard about his collection.
Right. So some collectors, prefer it completely original, but in some ways what John did and his involvement in the history of PFM also makes those pieces very historically significant.
Oh, I think
as well.
that's true. That is also true.
Yeah. Now, some of your paint work you've had done by Jerry Spolma.
Yes, and there was another painter, the Buyer Garrett up there in painted gray. The fellow that painted it said it was the most difficult paint job he had ever done, and he would never do another one.
And I'm sure he didn't.
And there's a whole article in one of the model railroad magazines about his painting job on that
nice.
particular model.
These mechanical, weren't those prototype for actual machines and so forth?
No, that was built afterwards.
Okay.
That model is a model of a coreless engine, and coreless was the name of the inventor of a different kind of valve gear on that model, and it really improved the efficiency of steam engines quite dramatically, because if the load was reduced, it automatically shut down the steam so that the engine didn't just blast a lot of steam through it all the time. And that model was built in 1897, and it came up at auction, and with it came the toolbox of the man that built it. And he built a lot of his own tools. He worked for a paper company up in Maine, and he made two of these models. The other one was given to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., and it's in a storeroom somewhere, and I don't think anybody's ever seen it again, which is one of the problems with the Smithsonian. But it's sort of fun to have that one here.
Yeah.
And to have his toolbox.
Yeah, to think that he had to make special tools just to make the models is pretty neat.
Well, he made a lot of his own tools. He really did, he was quite a mechanic who put that thing together. And
so you've kind of been fascinated with all parts of steam, like steam engines.
I'm been fascinated with almost all sorts of mechanical things.
Right. Reid, thank you so much. Appreciate your hospitality as always.
Well, it's fun to see you.
And I've always been enamored not only by your collection, but your obvious joy you get from it, the passion you have for it, and your willingness to share and kind of support others in the hobby. So appreciate it.
Well, I hope that a number of these things show up in the museum in Sacramento, and where a lot of people can see them.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, they're wonderful works of art, and they really truly are works of art.
Meant to be shared and displayed, and not stored away somewhere,
and
right?
not stored away. Exactly.
Very good.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you for coming out and talking to me.
What a nice interview with Mr. Reid Dennis. In particular, I love the details as we were able to show you there on the screen, especially of that Greenbrier unit, just spectacular. Nice job on those early hand-built models. Switching gears here now for our product updates. We're happy to tell you, we mentioned at the outset of the show, that we have the Union Terminal Imports Southern Pacific PA alcoves that have arrived here. And these PA units are, well, nice job, Chuck and Seho, at Boot Rim for these particular models. We do have the first set in-house. We expect the second delivery, I believe, is going to be here in the next week. But we just wanted to give you a little introduction as to what we have seen with these by way of a little bit of a review. The details, superb. Chuck and Ed have both done a nice job with that. Something I wanted to mention, though, at the outset here is they list the research that they have done on this particular project. If you go to their website and you look on the Alco PA project, you'll see this detailed research page. I encourage you to go there. If you purchase one of these models, go ahead and download this and take a look at all of the information that's contained therein. They've really outlined it well, all of the upgrades that they have put on these particular models to keep them true to the prototype. So nice job on that, guys. Now, with these particular PA units, we've tested these. They run excellent. The level of detail is just superb. Even the cab interiors look really good. Nice job on them. One of the things, though, that I wanted to highlight here is a note that we've got from Union Terminal Imports with each model is the delicacy or care that you need to take in taking the models out of the package, and we're going to explain why here in just a second. But what I wanted to do is just show this on screen, the way that they're recommending that we take these models out. Each of the models come with these little lift rings on the top. They're very small, but it's very easy to bend them. They've assured us that in packaging that they're not bent, so we want to make sure that they get to you the same way, and that when you take the model out, it's done so correctly so as not to damage those lift rings. So when you receive your model, you're going to see this little stop caution piece of paper. It's going to explain to you exactly how to take the model out of the package, along with these number boards, which we're going to get to in just a second. But just wanted to show you that here on camera. So when you get your model, you open the box up. You've got the foam insert on top. Take that foam insert out. And I will spin this model around here. There is our model packaged there nicely for us. And so what you want to make sure of, and what they're explaining to us, is not to grab the model as you might typically would do from the top and the bottom, because those lift rings are in there and you're going to damage them. So they're asking that we remove the model from the sides here when taking it out of the box, so as not to damage those lift rings or any of the other detail that is on the top of the model. So I'll go ahead and do that here just to show you. I have to turn it around here. And then what I'll do is grab the front and the back and lifting the model out very carefully, putting it here on the table. And then being careful, of course, on the top is where those lift rings are and that other detail. So just very carefully unwrap the model, and here we are. Take the tissue paper off real nice. And there you have it, with the lift rings looking good. They're not bent. You probably can't see that on camera, but I can tell you in looking at it that these are not bent. And also, we want to make certain that some of the models come with that antenna, and we wouldn't want to bend that in any way either. So just be very careful in taking the models out of the packaging that we're told here from UTI, and we certainly understand why, because we want to make sure to protect that investment. Now, one of the other things that we see inside the package is these number boards. And of course, this is a really nice feature that UTI has put into here, allowing you to customize it however you want according to these number boards. The model itself doesn't come with any. Now, we don't want to confuse that with the number on the front of the loco itself, but in those number boards, you can put in any of these numbers that are in this packet itself. And of course, they give us nice instructions on how to do that too. So take note of that, and then you're going to have your fully customizable train, your PA, just like you want it. So certainly a nice job with these. We look forward to receiving quite a few more in the doors here in the next coming week as we get our second shipment in of these. They're still available at our website. We have a few of the versions left. They come in a scarlet and gray, of course, and a daylight scheme. There's PAs and, of course, PB units available there also. So look at our new brass section, newbrasstrains.com. You can go ahead and order yours there, or as we start to list these, you'll see them on our classic section of our website for sale. So we certainly look forward to that. Speaking of sale, our annual sale is in full swing. So if you go to our website at brasstrains.com, look under current specials, you're going to see thousands of models there that are on sale through the end of December. We've started off with a big bang, and it's been great so far. And customers are really grabbing up some nice deals here at the end of the year. So make sure to go to our site to pick up some specials that you're looking forward to. Well, that's going to do it for our product updates. Now let's head back out to Ukiah, California, as we speak with Mr. Bill Peter of PBL.
Tell us a little bit about where you got that big boy, and I know you had that in one of the dispatches. There was a neat little story about it too, right?
Yeah, I did. I do the SN3 dispatch. That's periodical. That's as in maybe when I feel like it, right? But we picked up several of these models. Annie and I were down in some guy down in Sacramento, someplace anyway. I can't remember where we found him, but he had several of these models, and I picked them up. I bought them, and I went to an open house at Dave Bush's place, Precision Scale. He's gone now, and there were a number of guys there that are probably all gone now, but I still can remember some of them. One was Bud Stringham. He was a machinist, extraordinary machinist, and there was Oscar Newbert. He was a pattern maker for years, and Takahashi was there, who was the liaison man for Tatsumi. And I showed these things to Taki, and he explained to me.
He was very excited, really.
Yeah, he was.
He was very excited.
He said, "Oh, these are original handmades. We made these when we were young when we belonged to the railroad club at the Tetsudo Mokisha, right? And the railroad club was, of course, this was after the war. Japan was in really sad shape as far as economic and all that sort of thing, and there were tin toys coming out of there, remember? You probably don't remember, you're too young, but anyway.
I remember it. As if I had just read it in a...
But anyhow, so what happened was these fellas the GIs got wind of the Tetsudo Mokisha, which meant model train store in Japanese, loosely translated. And so they would go down there because, they were soldiers, yeah, but they were still interested in models. They were just someplace else. And these guys were playing on model trains. And they had a layout upstairs in that room. Taki told us about this. And the GIs saw these beautiful handmade models that these guys were making of their Japanese prototypes. And some GI must have said, Taki said, some GI said, "Well, I have a picture of a locomotive, U.S. Can you make this?" And that's how it all began. And so that big boy is one of the very early ones, Taki told us, because if you look at the pedestal that holds up, it has a centipede truck under the tender.
Right.
And if you look at how that's constructed, it's copper color. And the reason it's copper is because the builder made a pattern of that truck, and then he impressed it like in modeling clay.
Right.
And then they took it out of the clay, and they sprayed it with an electrically conductive paint, and then they put it in a solution, a plating solution, and they plated it with copper. And of course, the whole thing would be plated, and if you look at around the edges of it, you'll see where they cut it out. And then on the backside, they soldered it to a piece of brass with the holes in it for where the wheels are. That's how it was made. And so it was a really interesting process. It was time consuming, but that was long before lost wax stuff ever got into the picture. And Taki explained all this to me, and he said, if you look at it, you'll see the scribe marks on it from the builder when he made it. Oh, and I need to back up just a little bit because he told us that one guy at the Tetsudo Mokisha, one guy would say, "Okay, I want to do this. I'll do this project," and maybe it'd take a month or two, maybe longer sometimes for him to build a model, perhaps like the big boy. But when they got done with it and they bring it there and the GI came to buy it for maybe $50, right? They'd close the store and they'd all have a big party. And it was tough times for them.
Wow.
But it was beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
If you look at, most of that stuff doesn't have etchings on it, they have hand punch rivets and things like that.
Right.
And everything was fabricated. There aren't any castings on them. There will be perhaps, like the air pump might be a lead casting,
Okay.
which of course they could do, but brass, no, they couldn't do that.
Interesting. So you had that big boy for a long time.
We had it a long time. I had a number of those models. at one time.
Probably 35 years is a possibility, isn't it?
Wow.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Longer than that.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe it was
Yeah.
45 years.
Yeah.
And where did you get it originally?
Some guy over in the valley apparently it was his dad's or something. I think we didn't buy it from the original owner, but
No, I think
I
you're
think
right.
it was his father's
It was probably his estate.
his father's collection or whatever, and he had been a soldier over there in Japan.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
a neat story.
Nice
we're,
history,
We're going to
yeah.
have that available coming up here for one very fortunate viewer that's willing to pay a proper price for it.
Well, yeah, I think it's certainly a one of a kind model.
Yeah, it is
Yeah, right.
a really special piece of history.
Yeah, it was.
And what's really interesting about some of these handmaids is, like Bill talked about, the shop everybody went to, this railroad club. A lot of those guys were the founders of some of these builders, the famous builders. And Bill probably can list them all off. But what you can see is nuances of the individual models from these different builders. And then you can see that in their production models later on. Like we were talking earlier, like when we view the T1, we can see that the spring rigging was a copy of Gatto. So you know that he was the one that built that early model. And we can see that same style of design in his later models when he built production.
Yeah, that's really neat. Like a signature.
Right,
Yeah, like
right.
a signature.
Right, some of them have little coil springs. Like on that, we were talking about the P1. I believe the pedestal on the big boy doesn't do that, but the P1 has instead of all the wheels are sprung, but instead of using individual springs, he had a piece of wire that went across in behind that was soldered to the inside of the side frame, and that's what sprung the thing.
Right.
And Goto did that on some of his other models, and I'm just trying to remember the last one I had a part. It's been so many years, I forget, but it might have been that. I'm going to say that I'm not going to say. I can't remember, but I know I saw other ones like that.
In the world of brass trains, y'all come across cool things and you just feel like you got to buy it, right? So tell me a little bit about this Shay.
Well, this Shay was built by a fellow named Emery. His last name escapes me because I'm old. But anyway, he worked on this thing for 25 years. And it's everything about it. You can open that up there.
Yeah.
Everything about this thing is just totally incredible. It's just unbelievable the amount of effort that went into building this thing from scratch. It's all built from scratch. And of course the dynamo is a functional thing that you could buy, but the air pump over there on Dan's side, he made that thing. And if you look at the woodwork on it, everything about this thing, the correct amount of bolts here, the real thing was only about 40 miles away from his home in Colorado there. It's a model of the West Side's number 14, obviously Shay, but it's been in Colorado for a long time. Belongs to Lindsay Ashby, but anyway, this fella built this Shay, and I've never seen anything like it. So when it was offered to me, and I might say it was offered to me because I met Emery years ago when I had the shop in Chama, New Mexico, Dan, and he had kind of stopped to see us, and he enjoyed what we were doing, and he was into this stuff, of course, but. So when the thing was offered for sale, he thought of us because of the way my love for Shays and so forth, and so he sent me some pictures of it, And Dan, I had to have it.
Yeah, it's amazing. You said even like the windows even open prototypically.
Oh, yeah, it has. The real thing has a rod inside, and it has a little slide on it,
Right.
With a thumb screw thing. You see this?
It works. Yeah.
And it all works. All this stuff works. Look at that, how it fits.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Isn't that unbelievable?
It is.
And like this thing here on the inside, this window tilts out. If I can figure out how to do it, it's got a little hook thing there. See?
Yeah, sure enough. And then even this window's got the little additional window. I mean, just everything.
Oh, yeah.
Little
And
armrest.
if you look at on the side of it, it has the thing here to keep it open. I think there's a thumb screw on that too.
Look at
I
that.
can't get to it.
And I mean, normally I'm impressed if it has like a nut bolt washer casting. This actually has little machined nuts and bolts and washers and.
This is a modeler's model. If you're a modeler, then you can really appreciate the effort that went into building this thing. It's just beautiful.
You could spend so much time picking out new details.
Well, it's just staggering.
So it's not quite done because it would need a little work to finish up, but you were saying if one of our viewers tried really hard, they might talk you out of this.
There's a possibility. Yeah.
They'd have to have deep pockets.
Oh, well, it's such a beautiful thing.
It is beautiful. Thanks for sharing it.
Sure.
If somebody's interested, they can call you or call me, and I'll have them call you.
There you go, Dan.
But what a beautiful piece. Thanks for sharing it.
You bet.
All right.
Hi, I'm Fred Hill from the Coach Yard, and you're watching Monday Morning Express.
So Roll, another great episode. I particularly, with this big boy, enjoyed Bill talking about the copper color and what went into that particular piece there. The pedestal truck on that tender is pretty cool. But we got to think about next week. So what
Season finale.
are we going to do in our season finale?
Oh, a lot in store. But go
Here's
ahead.
a hint. If you're like me, you'll recognize this book immediately. George Selios.
Very nice.
Likely the greatest model railroader of all time, in many people's opinion, will be joining us via phone interview.
Sure. And speaking of a big boy, Jimmy Booth's in the house.
Jimmy Booth will be here. He's coming in studio.
That's right. Looking forward to that.
We have no idea what we're talking about, and that makes it even better. It'll be fun having him here.
Yeah.
And also, along with George Selios, Tom Driggers, who's got to work with George for a number of years, which must be amazing, and has a very interesting company, Tom's Custom Trains.
Yeah.
And we'll get to hear a little bit about that and see some.
We're going to Skype in with him, right?
Yeah, we'll Skype in with him.
that'll
Yeah,
be
so
nice.
that'll be great. And what else do we have for our season finale?
Oh,
I think we'll for
Wasn't
sure
there
have a
something
couple little
that-
surprises. Okay, and of course we're
secret.
going to also get to see Chuck Stead one more time out there at the Santa Clara Depot. You won't be disappointed. Be sure to tune in next Monday for our season finale of Monday Morning Express.